The stillness of the Maine night wrapped around me like a thick blanket, yet I felt the familiar chill seeping through the barn walls. It was a comforting reminder of my past, a contrast to the chaotic memories that often flooded my mind. The scent of damp hay filled my nostrils, grounding me as I tried to settle into this fragile peace. I heard Sarah shift beside me, her presence a soothing balm against the creeping anxiety. Suddenly, an unfamiliar scent reached my nostrils, and a low growl rumbled deep in my chest. My instinct kicked in. I watched the orchestrator stir above, its massive form silhouetted against the moonlit sky. My reptilian body uncoiled slightly, tasting the air with my long tongue, searching for any sign of danger. Something was off. The tension in the air felt thick enough to cut with a knife. As I scanned the shadows beyond the barn door, I saw headlights, deliberately dark, creeping up the dirt path toward Rebecca's farmhouse. My heart raced at the sight, it confirmed our unease. The whispers carried on the night breeze were unmistakable, the agency was here. I heard murmurs and hushed voices that sent shivers down my spine. Instantly, my sanctuary felt threatened, a safe haven becoming an exposed battlefield. Fear gripped me tightly. I had faced many foes before, but this was different. With adrenaline coursing through my veins, I scaled the barn wall effortlessly, my claws finding purchase in the weathered wood. Moving with a predator's grace, I positioned myself to get a better view of what was happening below. My breath came in shallow gasps as I peered down at the scene unfolding beneath me. Two figures emerged from the shadows, their silhouettes contrasting sharply against the dim glow of headlights illuminating Rebecca's porch. My heart thudded loudly in my chest as they exchanged furtive words that seemed laced with urgency. The weight of their presence pressed down on me like an iron shroud. "Make sure everything is secure," one of them ordered, his voice sharp and commanding. "We can't afford any mistakes tonight." My instincts screamed at me. These were not just agents out for a routine check, they were hunting something or someone with purpose that mirrored my own desperate need to protect those I cared for. I focused intently on their movements as they moved closer to Rebecca's door. With every step they took, I felt an escalating tension within me, a primal urge to defend what was mine ignited by their audacity to intrude on our sanctuary. Every fiber of my being urged me to act. "I'll check upstairs," said the second agent casually as he approached Rebecca's farmhouse with confidence that made my blood boil. In that instant, clarity washed over me like a tidal wave. There was no time to waste if I wanted to ensure Rebecca's safety. My heart pounded as I leaped down from my perch with calculated precision and landed silently on the soft earth below. The agents remained unaware of my presence as they moved closer to their target, their casual demeanor only fueled my determination further. I tightened my jaw and prepared myself for whatever confrontation lay ahead. Suddenly, a loud creak echoed from inside Rebecca's home, a sound that pierced through the darkness like an alarm bell ringing in my ears. My pulse quickened. She could be in danger if those agents weren't stopped immediately. I dashed forward without hesitation, each step fueled by urgency and fear for her safety. As I reached for the doorknob of Rebecca's farmhouse, dread gnawed at me. What if it was already too late? "Hey!" I shouted abruptly as I burst through the door uninvited and into chaos. The two agents turned sharply toward me, surprise flashed across their faces before it morphed into something more menacing. "Get out!" one of them barked while stepping forward defensively. "No! You don't understand." I countered urgently, desperation spilling into every word as adrenaline coursed through me like wildfire. But before another word could leave his lips, he lunged toward me, a movement born out of reflex rather than malice, and everything shifted in an instant. I saw shadows dance around us as chaos erupted inside what had once been our safe haven. A whirlwind of emotions mingled with raw instinct surged within me as I prepared myself for whatever came next. In this moment of confrontation, this forced clash between protector and threat, I realized how fragile our sanctuary truly was and how quickly it could shatter under pressure. And then it struck me, nothing would ever be the same again after tonight. If you're intrigued by this unfolding story and want to see where it leads next, please leave your like. The moment I stepped into the dense thicket of Wolf Lake National Park, an unsettling sensation crawled over my skin. The towering pines loomed like sentinels, their branches whispering secrets I couldn't quite grasp. I breathed in the earthy scent of damp soil mixed with the crispness of pine needles, but it did little to ease the cold knot tightening in my stomach. This was supposed to be a routine investigation. Instead, it felt like walking into a trap laid by something far beyond my understanding. I listened as Agent Bob Mitchell, a weathered park ranger, explained the recent disappearances that had become the talk of the town. His voice was steady, yet the tremor beneath it told me he was just as shaken by the events as I was. "We've had 3 missing persons in less than a month," he said, his eyes scanning the shadows as if expecting something to emerge at any moment. "All last seen near the lake." My breath caught slightly at that revelation. Each word seemed to amplify the weight pressing down on my chest. "What about search efforts?" I managed to ask, my voice tight with urgency. Bob shook his head slowly, frustration etched across his features. "We've combed every inch we could reach, nothing." His brow furrowed deeper as he continued. "But there's something strange happening here, Marcus." Before I could press for details, I saw Tyler Bennett, younger and visibly shaken, pull out a tablet from his backpack. He swiped through images with shaky fingers until he landed on one that made my heart skip a beat, a web cocoon clinging to ancient pines, shimmering with an eerie luminescence. It looked almost alive. "Look at this," Tyler said, his voice barely above a whisper. "This is where they disappeared." I leaned closer, studying the image with increasing unease. The intricate patterns of silk seemed to pulse and shift as if something was trapped inside. "What do you think this is?" I asked, but deep down, I feared knowing the answer. Tyler swallowed hard before responding, "I don't know, but it feels wrong." A cold knot in my stomach tightened further when he mentioned my dreams, which were less visions and more fragments of pure dread, images of dark figures lurking just out of sight and whispers that echoed like distant thunderclaps. It unnerved me that he could sense what haunted me most. As we moved deeper into the forest towards the first reported disappearance site, I noticed Sarah's nostrils flare slightly. Her keen senses detected something unnatural in the air around us. My own instincts kicked in, the familiar prickle along my spine heightened as shadows danced just beyond our line of sight. "Do you smell that?" she asked quietly. I nodded slowly while scanning our surroundings carefully. The scent hung heavy and sweet, a stark contrast to the pine-infused air, a signpost for something sinister lurking nearby. Then I found it, a torn ranger jacket draped over a twisted branch near an abandoned picnic area. It was far too clean for having been left here for weeks, its pristine condition suggested a sudden end rather than casual neglect. My pulse quickened as I crouched down beside it. "This isn't right," I murmured under my breath while examining every frayed edge and faded patch on the fabric. What had happened here? Tyler joined me at my side and gazed at the jacket in disbelief. "Do you think," he started but trailed off into silence. "I don't want to think," I replied tersely, straightening up and looking around again at our surroundings. My instincts were screaming that we were not alone. Suddenly, a faint scuttling sound broke through the stillness of the mist-shrouded pines, a high-pitched noise that made my enhanced hearing ache with its unnaturalness. It was too rhythmic, too deliberate for comfort. What was that? Tyler whispered urgently, looking around wide-eyed. I don't know, I admitted while taking careful steps toward where I'd heard it originate from. With each step forward came an escalating tension within me, an instinctual drive urging me to uncover whatever dark secret lay hidden beneath these trees. Stay close, Sarah warned softly as she followed right behind me. Her presence offered a small measure of comfort amidst growing unease. Just then we spotted movement, a flicker between two massive trunks, and before I could process what it meant or call out a warning, there was nothing but silence again, only our breathing filled the air now thick with dread. At that moment, clarity washed over me like ice water. This wasn't just another agency cleanup, this was something entirely new, something primal, and it made every hair on my neck stand up in alarm. I need you both to listen closely, I said firmly after taking a deep breath to steady myself against rising panic within me. Whatever's happening here is beyond what we've dealt with before. Tyler's eyes widened further while Sarah nodded slowly, understanding dawning upon her face, but even then I could tell they weren't fully grasping how dire our situation truly was. Let's keep moving, I urged them forward into deeper darkness, the weight of uncertainty hanging heavy like clouds above us, and though fear gnawed at my insides like hungry wolves eager for prey, there remained one undeniable truth: we were already knee-deep in something far more dangerous than any government conspiracy or rogue agent lurking in shadows ever could be. As I stepped deeper into the dense foliage of Wolf Lake National Park, an unsettling sensation crawled over my skin, prickling like static electricity. The towering pines loomed ominously, their branches swaying in a breeze that felt far too cold for comfort. I inhaled the earthy scent of damp soil mixed with pine needles, but it did little to soothe the gnawing unease swirling in my gut. This was supposed to be a straightforward investigation. Instead, it felt like walking into a predator's lair. Tyler's sudden gasp cut through the tension like a knife. I turned toward him just as he staggered back, clutching his forearm as angry red marks erupted and pulsed beneath his skin. My heart raced at the sight. What happened? I asked, alarm creeping into my voice. The air thickened around us, charged with something sinister and unseen. I don't know, he gasped, eyes wide with terror. It's like something is reaching for me. Panic gripped me as I felt an inexplicable psychic backlash wash over me. A searing pain lanced through my mind as if my consciousness brushed against his. In that agonizing moment, I sensed a deep, ancient tether connecting Tyler to something vile lurking just beyond our perception. Fragmented images flashed through my mind, a gaunt man with dead eyes staring into the abyss, a ritual circle inscribed in blood-red earth, and a name echoing relentlessly, Hayes. My breath hitched as understanding dawned upon me. This wasn't just some random series of disappearances, it was part of something far more sinister and orchestrated. Bob! I shouted, urgency coating my words as I turned toward him. He was rifling through his backpack with frantic energy before pulling out a tattered leather-bound journal, its pages worn and yellowed by time. You need to see this, he urged. I moved closer as he opened the journal to reveal scrawled notes that sent chills racing down my spine. It was an old agency operative's personal log detailing a cult's generational hunt for the Anchor, a living vessel meant to channel power from dark forces beyond comprehension. My pulse quickened. There was something terrifyingly familiar about this narrative. William, I murmured, recognition hitting me like a wave crashing against rocks. My hands trembled slightly as I read familiar handwriting within the journal, my brother's distinct scrawl detailing chilling theories about Hayes's cult and their plans to create multiple entities through specific bloodlines. A knot twisted painfully in my stomach as dread settled in like an unwelcome guest. Marcus, Bob said softly, concern etched across his features. This is bigger than we thought. I blinked away the haze of disbelief flooding my senses as clarity struck me hard. Tyler wasn't merely experiencing visions, he was linked to something dark and ancient. A realization dawned upon me. I was not just an observer, I was implicated in this horror unfolding around us. My heart raced as understanding solidified within me. I was a living conduit, chosen as the anchor for Hayes's complete resurrection. No. The word escaped my lips on a shuddering breath filled with denial and fear. The weight of this knowledge bore down on me like leaden chains binding me to fate's cruel design. Tyler staggered back further into the shadows while shaking his head violently as if trying to dismiss the very idea that we were entangled in this nightmare together. Marcus, he whispered shakily, what if they come for you? A profound sense of injustice surged within me at that moment, the realization that Hayes's evil wasn't random but rather an insidious targeting of specific bloodlines for immense power struck deep at my core. Anguish clawed at my throat. How could this be happening? I won't let them take you, I declared fiercely, determination rising within me despite the overwhelming fear threatening to consume us both. We had to escape whatever malevolent force lurked in these woods waiting to claim its prize. Suddenly, shadows shifted unnaturally among the trees behind us, a movement so slight yet palpable that it sent icy tendrils creeping down my spine. We need to move, I said urgently while grabbing Tyler's arm tightly. His skin felt cold beneath my touch. As we sprinted deeper into the forest underbrush, adrenaline surged through every fiber of my being, propelling us forward even as terror gnawed at our heels. Every rustle echoed ominously around us, the sounds amplified by our racing hearts, and somewhere nearby lay an answer we desperately sought but equally feared discovering. Marcus. Tyler gasped again, panic threading through his voice as he stumbled momentarily before regaining his footing beside me. The connection between us pulsed ominously, a shared dread binding us tighter than any physical threat ever could. At that moment, I knew one thing without question: we were not alone in these woods. The darkness watched us closely, waiting patiently for its moment to strike when we were most vulnerable. The tension thickened palpably around us, each breath became heavier with unspoken fears hanging between us like an electric current ready to snap at any moment. And still we pressed onward through the shadows enveloping Wolf Lake National Park, a place transformed into an arena where survival meant unraveling secrets buried deep beneath layers of dread and despair. I remember the moment I entered the dimly lit conference room, where the air was thick with unspoken fears and the weight of our impending mission. Director Elizabeth Morrison stood at the head of the table, her face a mask of grim determination. I listened intently as she outlined the agency's limited resources against the massive scale of the cult's operations, her voice steady yet tinged with urgency. Each word she spoke felt like a ticking clock, counting down to a confrontation I knew would test every ounce of my resolve. Time is not on our side, she said, glancing around at us, her eyes locking onto mine with a piercing intensity. We're outmatched, but we can't afford to let this cult continue their rituals. They're hunting something far worse than we initially believed. My heart raced, the implications were staggering. The stakes had never been higher. As I absorbed her words, I noticed Tyler sitting across from me, pale but resolute. He raised his hand slightly as if to gain attention. I want to join the assault, he insisted, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. The room fell silent as all eyes turned toward him. After everything that happened with Marcus's brother and my father, I owe it to both of them to fight. My chest tightened at his declaration. It was a weighty promise steeped in loss and determination. Tyler, this isn't just another investigation, I cautioned, feeling a surge of protective instinct for him. This is dangerous. "I know," he replied, his gaze unwavering. "But standing back while you all risk your lives isn't an option for me anymore." His conviction ignited something within me, a fierce admiration mixed with dread for what lay ahead. I looked around at my team. Sarah and the orchestrator were poring over a holographic map of the ritual site projected in front of us. Their alien perspectives offered critical tactical insights that we desperately needed. The orchestrator's elongated fingers traced intricate patterns on the display as Sarah pointed out potential entry points through their notes. "If we can pinpoint where they'll gather," she suggested thoughtfully, "we might be able to exploit their weaknesses." At that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility wash over me as I gazed at Tyler again, understanding that saving him meant confronting a darkness far more personal than I'd anticipated. Our fates were intertwined now, my past loomed larger than ever before. "I propose a risky plan," I announced, feeling the adrenaline surge through my veins as I laid out my thoughts for everyone to hear. "We can use aerial insertion through the dense canopy above. Our unique abilities will allow us to bypass their electronic detection systems." A murmur rippled through the group as they processed my suggestion. "What about contingencies?" Elizabeth asked sharply, her brow furrowing in thought. "We'll need distractions," I replied quickly, urgency rising in my voice. "A feint designed to draw their spider creatures away from the ritual's core will buy us precious minutes." The gravity of what we were discussing hung heavy in the air. It was one thing to strategize over coffee, it was another entirely to prepare for battle against an unfathomable enemy. Elizabeth nodded slowly but decisively as she met my gaze again. "Then let's make this count." My heart thundered as I exchanged determined looks with Tyler and Sarah before returning focus to the orchestrator's hologram flickering between our fingertips. The glowing map pulsated ominously with each heartbeat echoing in my ears like distant thunderclaps. With each moment that passed, tension mounted until it felt like electricity crackling just beneath our skin. "Let's move fast," Elizabeth said sharply, breaking through my reverie while pushing back from her chair with purpose that stirred something deep within me, an unwavering commitment to protect those who stood by my side. "We'll meet back here in 30 minutes. As everyone dispersed into their respective duties, I took a moment to collect myself. Fear mingled with resolve coursed through me like wildfire waiting for a spark. In those fleeting moments before we parted ways, Tyler caught my gaze once more, his expression resolute yet vulnerable, a reflection of everything at stake for both of us now entwined together in this desperate counterplan against an unknown horror lurking just beyond our reach. As we moved into action stations scattered throughout the facility preparing ourselves for what lay ahead, my heart raced faster than ever before knowing there would be no turning back once we crossed that threshold into darkness. We had forged a bond stronger than any fear could dismantle. And so it began, the countdown toward a confrontation woven tightly into fate itself, one final chance against insurmountable odds where unity would be our only weapon against what awaited us at Wolf Lake National Park. I remember the moment I reached for Tyler, the air around us thick with an oppressive weight. The clearing felt alive, almost sentient, as if it could sense our desperation. I could hear the rustling leaves and distant echoes of nature, but they faded into the background like a haunting melody I couldn't shake. My heart raced as I connected with him, feeling the raw agony of Hayes's consciousness exploding into my mind. It was a torrent of malevolence and hunger for control that clawed at my sanity. "Marcus!" Tyler gasped, his voice breaking through the chaos. I watched his eyes widen in terror, filled with fierce determination as he met my gaze. In that moment, an unspoken plea passed between us: sever the connection, whatever the cost. The urgency of our situation surged within me like a tidal wave, and I steeled myself for what was to come. I channeled the invading darkness back toward its source, using my own genetically altered physiology as a conduit. The strain was immense as I pulled Hayes's conscious essence away from Tyler, forcing it back into the prison of my own corrupted flesh. The shadows around us flickered in response to our psychic battle, swirling like angry storm clouds. I could feel Hayes's presence trying to worm its way deeper into my psyche, taunting me with insidious laughter echoing inside my skull. "You think you can win?" he mocked, his voice dripping with contempt. "You're merely prolonging your suffering." "No," I whispered fiercely through clenched teeth, refusing to yield to his torment. With every ounce of strength I possessed, I focused on the bond that tethered Hayes to me, an anchor forged in darkness and despair. My body convulsed violently as if caught in a violent storm. Pain shot through me like jagged shards of glass embedded in my flesh. "Fight it!" Tyler shouted, his voice cutting through the haze of chaos wrapping around me. His unwavering resolve pushed me further, igniting a flame within that had long been extinguished by fear and doubt. The energy coursing through me shifted, it transformed into something potent, a weapon against Hayes's insatiable hunger. "I won't let you take him!" I roared defiantly as I channeled every ounce of willpower into severing that connection. Hayes screamed, a guttural sound that tore through the clearing like a banshee's wail, his fury palpable as it clashed against my own determination. "You'll regret this," he bellowed. The world around us blurred, time seemed to stretch infinitely as we fought this psychic war together, two souls clashing against an ancient evil intent on claiming dominion over both our lives. My thoughts were a flurry of images, moments shared with Tyler, memories from before everything spiraled out of control. The laughter we had once known now felt distant and fragile. As I pulled harder against Hayes's essence, I saw flashes of grotesque shapes forming in the shadows surrounding us, illusions crafted from fear and despair attempting to distract me from my mission. But amidst all that chaos, Tyler's determined eyes anchored me. They shone brightly like a beacon guiding me back to myself. In an explosion of energy that reverberated through both our minds and bodies, I felt myself snap back into focus, my essence crashing against Hayes's dark consciousness like waves against jagged rocks. Each pulse brought us closer to liberation or destruction. There would be no middle ground. Suddenly clarity washed over me like cool water drenching flames. I knew what needed to be done. With one final surge fueled by love and sacrifice for Tyler's sake, I yanked Hayes's essence away from him completely, a visceral act that ripped through both our realities. The moment was electric, everything felt heightened, the air crackled with raw power as Hayes's presence recoiled violently within me. "No! You cannot do this," he howled in desperation while desperately grasping for his lost hold on Tyler. "I can and I will," I declared fiercely even as pain lanced through me again, a searing reminder of what was at stake. In an instant too quick to comprehend yet painfully slow all at once, Hayes's screams echoed endlessly within my mind before abruptly silencing. It felt surreal yet liberating as though chains binding me had shattered under immense pressure. I saw my transforming body convulse violently one last time before collapsing lifelessly onto the cold forest floor, the ritual incomplete but undeniably broken, the connection severed between us at last. As silence enveloped us in its embrace, reality began stitching itself back together, a tapestry woven from threads of courage born out of unimaginable fear, and though uncertainty loomed ahead like shadows creeping upon dawn's first light, hope flickered anew amidst whispers promising brighter days ahead. I stood on a ridge overlooking a valley, the agency's designated sanctuary, where remnants of chaos lingered like shadows at dusk. The sun dipped low, casting golden rays that danced upon the trees, but I could still feel the weight of the battle we had just endured. My heart pounded as I tried to shake off the aftermath of that psychic war, a strange mix of relief and apprehension washing over me. To my right, I watched Sarah and the orchestrator explore their new home, their movements exuding a cautious freedom that felt almost surreal. Rebecca walked alongside them, her presence a comforting anchor in this unsettling landscape. The forest seemed to breathe with us, its stillness both eerie and oddly reassuring. I couldn't help but think about how much had changed in such a short time. As I turned to survey our surroundings more closely, I heard footsteps approaching. It was Tyler. My arm had fully healed from the ordeal we had faced together, but there was something different about him, a quiet weight in his presence that hinted at lingering shadows from his experience. He moved closer, his expression a mixture of determination and vulnerability that tugged at my heartstrings. "Marcus," he said softly, voice barely above a whisper. "I've been thinking about my brother and father." His words hung in the air like fog rolling over the valley. The pain of losing them never really goes away. I felt an ache blossom within me as I nodded in understanding. The shared grief between us formed an unspoken bond. Victory may have come at a cost we were still learning to bear. I glanced back toward Sarah and Rebecca, who were now examining some peculiar markings on the ground, symbols etched into the earth that stirred memories of what we had fought against. The forest held secrets far darker than I could comprehend. "Do you think they'll come after us?" Tyler's voice broke through my thoughts again. "I don't know," I replied honestly, my gaze drifting to the horizon where dark clouds loomed ominously. "But we'll be ready if they do." A part of me wished to believe that our struggles were behind us, yet doubt crept in like an unwelcome guest. At that moment, Elizabeth Morrison emerged from the thicket beyond us, stripped of her tactical gear and embodying an earnestness I hadn't noticed before. She approached slowly, her face weary yet imbued with sincerity as she met my gaze directly. "Marcus," she began cautiously, "I want to talk about your future with us." My heart quickened, her words held promise but also uncertainty. "What do you mean?" My voice trembled slightly as hope flickered within me like a candle fighting against the wind. "I know we've made mistakes," Elizabeth continued earnestly. "But this agency is changing, moving away from unethical practices towards something more honorable." Her eyes reflected a deep-seated desire for redemption that resonated with me on some level. "I want you to be part of this new direction," she added resolutely. "You've shown incredible strength during this crisis, and your commitment can help guide us toward true freedom." A warmth spread through my chest at her words. It was an opportunity for change, perhaps not just for myself but for others who had suffered under our past choices. Yet even as hope blossomed within me, caution lingered in my mind like smoke from a dying fire. "And what if this is just another facade?" I asked bluntly, unable to suppress the skepticism rising within me. Elizabeth's brow furrowed slightly at my challenge but remained steadfast in her response. "Trust takes time to rebuild, I understand that. But if we're ever going to make amends for what's happened, we need individuals willing to step into this light." Her conviction pierced through my doubts like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Before I could respond further, Tyler shifted beside me, a silent question hanging in the air between us. He looked uncertain yet hopeful as he stepped forward slightly toward Elizabeth. "If you're really committed to changing things," he said cautiously, "then maybe it's worth exploring." I glanced between them. Tyler's willingness surprised me. It revealed growth born from pain and understanding alike, and it ignited something within me too, a flicker of hope intertwined with trepidation. "I need time," I finally admitted aloud, feeling both exposed and liberated by my honesty. My heart raced as Elizabeth nodded solemnly. She understood that healing would require patience, a journey fraught with challenges still ahead. As twilight settled over the valley around us, the colors deepening into rich purples and blues, I sensed an unseen weight lifting ever so slightly from our shoulders. Maybe this was how beginnings looked, messy yet promising amidst uncertainty. The shadows creeping across the landscape whispered secrets only half formed in my mind, a reminder of all we had endured, but they also hinted at possibilities waiting just beyond reach, paths untraveled leading toward redemption or peril alike. "Let's take it one step at a time," I suggested finally. The words felt right somehow, as if they were paving way for what lay ahead while acknowledging everything left unresolved within ourselves too. In that moment of fragile clarity amid lingering darkness, I discovered something profound. Courage isn't merely about facing external threats head-on. Sometimes it means confronting our own inner demons together as well, daring to dream amidst nightmares still echoing faintly behind us. As silence enveloped us again, an unspoken pact forming between allies forged in battle, I allowed myself one last glance over the valley before turning back toward those who mattered most, ready or not, for whatever came next. I stood at the edge of the clearing, the forest around me brimming with an unsettling stillness. The weight of the past few days pressed heavily on my shoulders, and I could almost hear the echoes of our struggles whispering through the trees. My heart pounded in my chest as I studied Elizabeth's face, searching for deception in her offer. Instead, I found only exhaustion and a surprising sincerity that made me pause. "I want to help," I finally said, my voice steady despite the turmoil swirling within me. But not as a prisoner, rather as a consultant. Accepting this role felt like reclaiming a part of myself that had long been obscured by shadows. I understood that this war was far from over, yet something deep within urged me forward. A faint rustle in the underbrush drew my attention, pulling me back into the moment. Sarah's voice broke through my thoughts. "New war, same enemies." Her words resonated with a surge of resolve that coursed through me like electricity. This wasn't just about confronting external threats, it was about facing our own inner demons together. I turned toward the eastern horizon where the sun began to rise, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson. It was beautiful yet foreboding, a promise of new battles ahead and all the uncertainties they would bring. In that moment, I felt William's presence beside me, a quiet whisper of pride reminding me of the sacrifices that forged purpose in chaos. For the first time since his death, I realized I had found a place, a purpose, and a chosen family among these allies who had fought alongside me. No longer was I merely Subject 16 Alpha, I was Marcus, ready to stand against whatever darkness lay ahead because someone had to do it. "Elizabeth," I said firmly, "I'm all in." The gravity of those words settled between us like an unbreakable bond formed from shared trials. She nodded solemnly, acknowledging both my commitment and the weight it carried. As we prepared to discuss our next steps, I felt an undeniable shift in energy around us, the air thickening with anticipation as if even nature itself understood what lay ahead. The forest stood silent but alert, it mirrored our own hearts, on guard but ready for action. "What's our first move?" Tyler asked, his expression reflecting both determination and vulnerability that tugged at my heartstrings. His willingness to fight alongside us spoke volumes about his growth since everything began unraveling. "We need intelligence," Elizabeth replied decisively, her eyes flickering with renewed purpose. "We have to understand who we're up against before we make any moves." A spark ignited within me at her words. This was more than just strategizing, it was about reclaiming agency over our lives after feeling so powerless for far too long. "Let's start gathering intel then," I suggested, my voice rising above the chatter of leaves rustling in the wind. "If we can identify their network and weaknesses." As I spoke, shadows crept along the forest floor, a reminder that danger lurked nearby even amidst our newfound hope. My pulse quickened, we were stepping into something unpredictable yet necessary. Every instinct screamed at me to remain vigilant. "Marcus," Sarah called softly from behind me as she crouched down to examine an unusual marking on a nearby tree trunk, a symbol etched deep into its bark that sent chills coursing through my veins. "Do you think this is one of their signs?" The air thickened again as fear gripped my throat. Images flashed in my mind, visions of what these symbols might represent. "It could be," I replied cautiously as I knelt beside her for a closer look, tracing its contours with trembling fingers. Suddenly, an overwhelming sense of dread washed over me, a visceral reaction urging me to pull away from this dark omen embedded in nature itself. "We need to be careful," I warned softly while pulling Sarah back gently from its grasp. In that moment, clarity struck. I understood now more than ever how intertwined our fates had become within this struggle against an unseen enemy determined to tear us apart again. With renewed determination burning brightly within me like wildfire, I stood tall once more amidst uncertainty, and knew we would navigate whatever lay ahead together. At that instant, it dawned on me, courage isn't merely about fighting external threats. Sometimes it means confronting our own fears while forging bonds stronger than anything darkness could try to sever. As twilight settled softly around us, the colors deepening into rich purples and blues, I sensed something profound emerging from within myself, acceptance for all that had transpired leading up until now, and hope kindling anew amid lingering shadows whispering secrets yet uncovered. "Let's take it one step at a time," I proposed finally. The words flowed naturally as if they were forging pathways for what lay ahead while acknowledging everything left unresolved inside each of us too. The silence enveloped us again, a pact forming between allies forged in battle, as I allowed myself one last glance over this enchanted forest before turning back toward those who mattered most, ready or not, for whatever came next. Did you like this story? Leave a like, comment your thoughts and subscribe for more stories.